What we're gonna do right here is go back, way back into time.
This is Butch Slaughter, and you're listening to the echoes of Indiana Avenue. Welcome to my neighborhood, the Avenue. I grew up here, and each week I'll be sharing the sounds and stories of the people that made the Avenue great.
Welcome back to the Avenue. I'm your guest host, Rodney Stepp, back for another edition of Echoes of Indiana Avenue. Earlier this year, the Indianapolis Jazz Foundation announced its list of inductees for the Indianapolis Jazz Hall of Fame. Among the honorees for 2026 is the late, great jazz drummer, Jozell Carter. Known for his bold and powerful sound on the drum kit, Jozell Carter was a pioneer of soul jazz music. In the early 1970s, he appeared on landmark recordings by the Ohio vibraphonist Johnny Lytle. And he worked extensively in the Naptown jazz scene, performing on classic recordings from Billy Wooten and the Small Talk Quintet. For the next 2 weeks on Echoes of Indiana Avenue, we'll celebrate the music of Jozell Carter. Today, we'll focus on his recordings with Johnny Lytle. Jozell Carter was born in Buffalo, New York in September of 1942. He studied the trumpet as a child before switching to drums. By the late 1950s, Jozell was performing across the Midwest and East Coast with the Four Clefs, a jazz quartet featuring his cousin, the legendary saxophonist Grover Washington Jr. When the Four Clefs split up in the early 1960s, Jozell began working with vibraphonist Billy Wooten. Jozell made his first known appearance in Naptown in 1966 at the Hubbub Jazz Club with Billy Wooten. And he returned to the Hubbub in 1968 as the drummer for Johnny Lytle's band. Jozell would spend the next several years touring and recording with Lytle.
Another hell of a player, right on. You got players amongst you. This guy was with me for 7 years. He did 8 albums with me. And he decided he was going to make his home in Indianapolis. So I still have a friend, and he's a hell of a drummer. Jozell Carter, ladies and gentlemen. Dick Williams over there, the disc jockey. Hi, Dick.
During this period of his career, Jozell performed alongside many iconic American entertainers, including Dionne Warwick, Red Fox, The Silvers, Lonnie Smith, Jack McDuff, Billy Paul, Groove Holmes, Charles Earland, and many more. By the mid-1970s, Jozell was living in Naptown. In 1975, he joined the Naptown funk band Energy Crisis, an all-star group that featured Bula Ball on keys, Hank Hankerson on sax, and Baby Leon on vocals. Jozell remained in Naptown until his death in 2004 at the age of 61. During his time in Indianapolis, Jozell worked with the greatest musicians in the local jazz scene, including Jimmy Cole, David Young, Clifford Ratliff, Billy Wooten, Carl Hines, Jonathan Wood, Steve Weekly, and many others. For 23 years, Jozell also held down a day job, providing security for the Indiana State Museum. We'll begin our tribute to Jozell Carter with music from Johnny Lytle's classic 1972 album, The Soulful Rebel. That record featured Jozell performing with a group of legendary musicians, including Ron Carter on bass, Ray Barretto on congas, and David Spinoza on guitar. We'll hear 3 tracks from that album now: The Soulful Rebel, Gunky, and High Treason. That was Johnny Lytle with High Treason, featuring Naptown's Jozell Carter on drums. On this week's show, we're exploring Jozell's work with Lytle. Up next, we'll hear 3 more tracks from Johnny Lytle's 1972 release, The Soulful Rebel. We'll begin with The New Village Caller, followed by The Struggle and Leela. I'm Rodney Stepp, guest host for this week's edition of Echoes of Indiana Avenue. This is the first episode in our 2-part series exploring the music of Jozell Carter, a legendary Naptown jazz drummer. Earlier this year, the Indianapolis Jazz Foundation announced that Jozell Carter would be inducted into the Indianapolis Jazz Hall of Fame. In the first half of the program, we shared music from The Soulful Rebel, a 1972 album from Johnny Lytle that featured Jozell on drums. Up next, we'll listen to music from Johnny Lytle's 1973 album, People and Love. We'll hear the track Tawheed, followed by Where Is the Love? That was Johnny Lytle with Where Is the Love, featuring Naptown's Jozell Carter on drums. That track was featured on Lytle's 1973 album, People and Love. On this week's show, we're exploring Jozell's work with Johnny Lytle. Let's hear one more track from the People and Love album. This is Libra featuring Jozell Carter on drums. That was Johnny Lytle with Libra, featuring Naptown's Jozell Carter on drums. And that's all the time we have for this week. Thanks for tuning in for the first episode in our two-part series exploring the music of the late, great Jozell Carter. Tune in next week as we look back at Jozell's recordings in the Naptown jazz scene. You can meet me here on the Avenue again next week, same time, same place. And you can find the Echoes of Indiana Avenue podcast at WFYI.org or wherever you listen to podcasts. Echoes of Indiana Avenue is written and produced by Kyle Long. Our podcast is edited by Holly Summers, and our radio director at WFYI is Roxana Caldwell. And I'm your guest host, Rodney Stepp. Thanks for listening.
Nobody knows on uptown, baby, like I do. Nobody knows on uptown, baby, like I do. If you will stop and listen, I will tell you a thing or two.